French onion soup.
Today we'll make the soup of the French with onions.
But today we're not making French onion soup.
Hold on.
We're making burgers, so can you guess what we're gonna do?
Just tell us, Nick, what are we making?
French onion burgers.
Today we'll make French onion burgers. Wait, French people can make burgers?
We'll start out by making those burger buns, because we're gonna have to rest these in the background for quite a while. So I typically like to get that out of the way first.
I too like my buns first.
1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of warm water.
1 cup of water.
2 tablespoons of active dry yeast.
All the active dry yeast I have left.
And once I've made sure that that's nice and well dispersed, I'll slowly pour in a 1/4 cup of sugar.
Make sure it's well dispersed. Pour in a 1/4 cup of sugar. 1/4 cup? Hope I don't get diabetes after this.
Once that's well combined, we'll let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes for that yeast to wake up.
Wake up, yeast. We don't got no 5 minutes.
Once that's had time to rest, we'll close down our mixer. And as we slowly begin mixing, I'll crack in 1 egg,
1 egg.
a little pinch of salt,
A pinch of salt.
then slowly go in with about 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour.
Flour.
To finish, I'll evenly sprinkle in about a 1/3 cup of vegetable oil.
1/3 cup of vegetable oil. This is normal, right? This is normal, right? I wasn't even worried for a second.
Now into a small glass bowl, I'll go in with a little bit of vegetable oil. Then I'll drop in our nice smooth dough.
We'll take the beautiful dough off the dough hook. As always, to do less dishes, we'll spray the same bowl and place the dough ball in there.
Place a damp kitchen towel over the top to let this rise for about an hour or an hour and a half.
To do less laundry, we'll use saran wrap and let it rest.
While those buns rest, we're gonna take out our Wagyu.
We'll use pre-ground beef.
Of course, we're not gonna use pre-ground burger meat here, right?
Wrong.
But you may be wondering why we're using this and not that really high-end Japanese Wagyu. But don't worry, we got it. Right here.
Jeez, Nick, you do be paying good, eh?
With a French onion soup, of course we need a nice beef stock. So I'll crank the heat up, toss in a stick of my butter.
Toss in a stick of my butter.
And once that butter melts down, I'll toss in a little bit of shallot, which I've just finely chopped and will give a little bit more flavor.
Once the butter melts, I'll toss in some onion, which I finely chopped to add more flavor.
Once that begins to get translucent and the butter starts to brine a little bit, I'm gonna pour in a few cups of beef stock. Now I know, we like to make everything homemade, but normally I like to make my stocks like this overnight, so I'm not gonna make you sit for an entire day here and watch me cook this down.
I too made the beef stock overnight. It totally did not come out of a package or anything like that.
I'll put this off behind me and let this go until we essentially have a nice syrup. This is gonna be that beautiful jus that we pour over the top of our burger when it's done.
I'll put this behind me until it's maple syrup. This will be a good jus, just like my uncle.
Now I know I've tried to stress this already, but caramelized onions take some time. But they take some time for a reason. They're one of the best, most delicious things out there. And I truly mean that. I know it's hard to believe that you can take something like an onion and turn it into something that's almost sweet and candy-like. But you really can. This little baby can turn to something amazing.
The reason caramelized onions take so long is because we need to evaporate most of the water. Onions are 89% water, and it takes a long time to also caramelize the sugar, the only 4% sugar. That's why caramelized onions take so long.
Now again, it's just a lot easier for me in this situation to use a mandolin. I'll get those slices perfect, similar, and faster.
I'm gonna use magic to cut the onions, and nobody can stop me.
And you can see that what's coming out on the bottom is these perfect, beautiful strips of onion.
Perfect, beautiful strips of onion.
You know, it's great. We're just a couple onions in here, but I'm gonna be totally honest. I am starting to cry a little bit. If you're one of those lucky people that has contacts and doesn't cry from onions, this is one of those times where you could be a really good helping hand in the kitchen right now for me.
I have no emotions, and I do not cry, which made cutting those onions easy work.
Good thing I'm using the safety.
Hold on, Nick. What are you doing with your hand over there? God have mercy.
Once these onions are all finely chopped, I'll take out any of the bits with the roots that don't look nice.
Take any bits that don't look nice and save for a later snack.
For our caramelized onions, we'll start with a few tablespoons of butter and immediately follow this with just a little bit of vegetable oil. I find for whatever reason that a mix between the two helps.
The reason the mix between the two helps is because it can enhance flavor, promote even browning, prevent burning, and create a balanced texture for caramelized onions. You're welcome.
Once that's all melted, we'll toss in all of our onions. Try to use something big enough where you can fit all of them at once.
Once it's all melted, we'll toss in all of our onions. All of them. You thought we're done? We got more. All the onions. And even more onions.
Immediately, I'll hit those with just a little bit of salt.
Immediately salt.
Once those start to cook down more and get lightly translucent, I'm gonna go across the top with a little bit of sugar. I'll mix that around just a little bit, making sure to coat that evenly as well.
Add some sugar. This will help the onions caramelize and become this beautiful rich color.
Once they look like this, we're gonna cook them just like this over about medium heat for an hour, stirring constantly. Just look at how creamy and delicious these look now, and then wait till you see them momentarily.
Taking my onions 2 hours to fully cook. Here is a time lapse. My phone camera also got this weird error about overheating. I'll just stick it in the freezer and ignore it. Since most of the water has evaporated, the onions brown very quickly, so be careful. Added some salt to taste, and look at how beautiful these caramelized onions turned. 2 hours of work right there.
Our buns have risen so much that they've lifted the towel several inches off the top of the bowl. You can see it's bulging right out of the side of the bowl here. And there's probably a lot of silly jokes I could make about this.
I was gonna make a silly joke, but then it burst out.
My cutting board with a little bit of flour. We wanna make sure everything's nice and lubed up when we go to put that piece of dough down.
Lube up the cutting board.
Now I'm gently gonna pull this out of our bowl, and I'll just say how amazed I am at how fluffy this is. I can tell you right now, these are gonna be some damn good buns.
These will be some buns.
As you already know, I like my buns big, haha. Naughty. So the first thing I'll do is make this into a nice log that we're gonna cut from.
I do not want to be intimidated, so I'm not gonna make it into a log.
Make sure it's nice and even, because oftentimes I see people make a log that's a lot smaller on the edges, which means you have buns that are smaller from the edges.
Perfectly even.
Look at that, it's a person.
Okay.
And then divide them into 3 buns.
We're gonna cut the buns into 6 even pieces.
I'll take each of the dough balls with the smooth side up, flip them over, and begin pinching in from the outsides to make a ball.
Take all the balls and roll them over themselves until they're nice and smooth.
And with my hand in a claw shape, roll in a clockwise motion until I get the perfect ball.
I only roll in counterclockwise motion, so I'll skip this step.
Once the bun is complete, you can see how soft, smooth, and perfect it is. And now I can tap it down just a little bit to make sure it gives me the right bun shape, and then drop it straight onto that mat.
Drop it straight onto the mat. Instead of tapping it, I was just touching it for some reason. I don't even know.
You can see, as I was warning against, that you'll sometimes get slightly different sized buns, and honestly, that's okay.
Hold on, Nick. I remember you saying...
Make sure it's nice and even, because oftentimes I see people make a log that's a lot smaller on the edges, which means you have buns that are smaller from the edges.
But honestly, I like buns of all shapes and sizes, so it's fine.
But for now, we'll cover these up again with our kitchen towel and let these rest for another 15-20 minutes or so to let them come back up a little bit before we bake them.
The buns are sleepy, so we'll let them take their second nap.
Beautiful buns have rested. Before we bake, I do like to paint them with just a little egg wash, which is simple. I've cracked 1 egg and added about a tablespoon or 2 of water.
After the buns nap, we'll paint them with some egg wash, which is just water and egg.
Egg washing buns is quite fun. It's one of those really satisfying things that you can do. And like I've said before, this silicone paintbrush is one of my favorite tools in the kitchen. After all, food is art, so using something like a paintbrush makes total sense.
Food is art. Speaking of art, check out my Instagram where I made Oreo sushi.
We're gonna toss these in the oven at 425 Fahrenheit for about 8 to 12 minutes or so. After that, these babies should be ready to go.
Toss into the oven until a baby is born. About 8 to 12 minutes.
Before we make those patties, we gotta grate our Gruyere cheese. This is one of the best cheeses out there.
Before we make the patties, we gotta grate the Gruyere cheese. Gruyere cheese is very good.
So of course we're gonna top our burgers with this cheese. I'm just gonna quickly grate down 2 blocks of Gruyere and have this ready so I can sprinkle it over our burgers.
I'm just quickly gonna grate down this Gruyere. This thing is taking too long. I'm gonna just cut it. Should be same result.
We'll fluff this up a little bit and then set it off to the side. We are finally ready to make those burgers.
Fluff this up a little bit and set it off to the side. We're finally ready to make the burgers. Yay!
Once I have a nice hot pan, place that down. Then we smash.
Since we're not using Wagyu, we'll put a little bit of oil. Then we do the Hulk smash.
And once that's down, I'll add a little bit of salt.
Once done, a little bit of salt.
And a nice bit of fresh cracked pepper.
And fresh dollar store cracked pepper.
Now, once it's ready to flip, I'll come under in 1 swift motion and flip it over.
Now that the burger is ready, I'm gonna come under the burger and give it a flip.
That down again, then place on our lid.
Pile all the cheese on top of the burger buns and place on our lid.
Once that cheese is nice and melty, we'll lift this off. And our first cheesy, delicious patty is complete.
Once the cheese is melty, we'll take this off and our first and second patties are complete.
Tell me those aren't some of the shiniest buns you've ever seen.
These are some of the shiniest buns you've ever seen. Tell me.
I don't know who could fit this thing in their mouth.
Oh, Nick, you don't gotta worry. I can fit it in my mouth.
Open this one up.
Nick, don't do that. Now you can't put anything in that bun.
Let me just do the same thing with the second piece here.
Please don't.
Look at how fluffy those buns are.
The buns were very fluffy.
I made it to the burger assembly stage. I'm gonna gently come through this bun and cut it right in half.
I'm gonna gently come on this bun and then cut it in half. Wait, what? I meant cut through. Look at how fluffy these buns are. And I can still use them.
I know it sounds crazy, but I'm making the active choice today not to toast this bun.
Nick made the active choice of not toasting the bun.
I hope you know it's not laziness, because again, we make everything from scratch.
You know, it is laziness, even though I made everything from scratch. Almost.
To assemble my burger, I'll start with our first patty on the bottom of the bun here.
I'll start off with the first patty at the bottom of the bun.
Now some of you might be confused what you're looking at here.
I'm not confused because it took me 2 hours to make.
This right here is what you should use as the base of a French onion soup. Not some pathetic little pile of these half-assed, barely sliced onions that haven't even really been cooked.
You hear that? We're not gonna use some pathetic onions. We're gonna use the 2-hour caramelized onions. Yeah.
Next, we'll add a second patty onto our burger here.
Second patty coming on next.
And at this point in time, another pile of our Gruyere cheese. And I'll show you why. I want to torch this so I can get some of the cheese to that golden brown bubbliness that you'd often see on a French onion soup.
Let me get creative. At this point, I'll pile some cheese and stick it in the oven. On broil.
Now once we've done that, the only thing left here is our sauce. Just like those caramelized onions, this beef stock has reduced down to nearly nothing, but the flavor in here is absolutely overwhelming. I've strained out those shallots and added just a little bit of flour to make a roux.
I did not strain the onion, but I did add some cornstarch to make it thicker.
And once I place down this bun, we are ready to eat. Let's do it. Whoa, that's crazy. Wow, so much is going through my head right now. I'm just gonna take a moment. Let me just start by saying that this is up there on the list of the top 5 burgers I've ever had.
This is also one of the best burgers I've had. The flavor is extremely good. However, because the buns have so much sugar in them, it's a little bit too sweet. Maybe cut out on the sugar on the buns.
Don't forget to tap that subscribe button and hit the little bell for the notifications because you don't want to miss those. I'm still uploading every single
week,
which can be hard at times, but it's a lot of fun and I enjoy it. In the meantime, happy cooking, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
7.99 out of 10.